funny. I hadn't seen my cousin Dan for a long time, and I must have written this for him, because I wrote, if you have the karma to walk in here, and he was just saying how he was working up in Times Square and was had to do some, his wife was in home, so he wasn't going to go home, he thought he'd go for a wander, and he'd go walking, and he was counting his paces or something, and then he thought he'd got to do some more paces, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm in Union Square, and Hector's around here, and he pops up, and he walked in here. So I didn't mean it to be literally, I meant more figuratively, but thank you for the example. Yeah.
It says you are not normal.
Yeah, you are not normal. Yeah. No, there's an aspect here that we should cover, and I'll do it very quickly, right? There's this thing called the 8 spiritual leisures, and it really is designed to make you understand that the fortune of being the kind of being you conceive yourself as is rare and supreme. You are not a normal person. And there is something, some coding that is not, you might think yourself normal because you associate with people in your realm, right? But to understand that out of all the possible experiences that you could have had as an entity on the planet, you have, if everything is caused, produced this experience of yourself as a thing on the planet, as a consciousness perceiving this world in a very real sense. Here in New York, walking into a room, considering ideas that take you beyond the limited experience of self in a suffering world. If everything is caused, that is also caused. So some magnificence produced this experience for you, and all the hopes and possibilities that come along with that, if you're conceiving of them, as long as with all the doubts and all the other things. But to have the capacity to understand it, to have the capacity to see it as a possibility, to have the capacity and the freedom to engage with it, it really is a rare, and I know I say it often, but conceive of it. Out of all the possible crawling things on this planet, you, the ones you can see and the ones you can't, you have had the fortune to be this thing. And according to some, this thing is so close to enlightenment, so close, that it's like the arrow that's touching the paper, yeah, about to pierce through. So here's quickly, in 1 minute, the 8 spiritual leisures. It says you're not holding wrong views, which means you really do have some capacity to understand causality of the physicality of life and of the mental life. You understand causality, cause and effect, means you don't have wrong views. You don't think, you're not holding wrong views. It means you are not grasping to self-existence. You have opened up a bud that says, I understand causality, therefore I can cause paradise, I can cause heaven. Yeah? Not born as an animal, not born as a craving spirit, not born as a hell being. If those things are true, you can confirm one of the other two, the others you can take on faith or through some kind of logic. But imagine being a pigeon. Imagine, you know, like I keep looking at pigeons because they keep doing this when they walk. I'm like, I'd hate to walk like that. I wouldn't be able to concentrate. Sorry.
I was thinking about that too the other day, and then I thought, we don't even notice that we walk like this.
Yeah, that's true. We walk like this. Yeah. Thank you. But all the impulses that come with being what we a thing called animal, which we call animal, this being locked into an experience of being that is forever engaging with their reality as eat or be eaten, flight or fight. With this kind of, we have some leisure and some freedom from that. Disney doesn't really portray the true animal realm. You know, there's some birds that come on your windowsill and they're scared shitless of being eaten. It's not that they're twitching. They're not relaxed, lovely birdies. That's a rarity. Unless you're on Facebook, which is now telling you lots of animal stuff, having fun. Not more. Well, I mean, I was talking with someone about Facebook getting very concerned about negative impulses on Facebook, and so they're feeding more nice, lovely stories like huskies in fridges and kittens rolling around and things. So we associate fluffiness and goodness with the app rather than reality of people being bombed in Syria. You know.
The opium of the masses.
Huh?
The opium of the masses.
Yes, it's the opium of the masses. So the first few you can understand, but really conceive of it. It's not just a list. I'm talking about you, this being, this person sitting in this room, and the life that brought you here. You can see the relative causation, but the ultimate causation of you being this creature that you are right now, and not these other options, which are options, right? Not these other options. And so something produced that. It's sprouting from some causation. It's sprouting from virtue, because it's a goodness to have the time to relax, to live in a land with clean water, to speak a language that you can connect with other beings, to be understood, to conceptualize emotions. Well, not born in a land with no teachings. So there are places that don't have these ideas. There are places on this land that you don't have access to things that can get you to freedom. Not born in an uncivilized land. We talked about this in terms of people keeping Vinaya, keeping morality. Not born as a human incapable of practice. And so you could be a human, but you might physically you might be unable to, or mentally you might be too beyond capacity to understand and practice these things. If I'm talking to the people I think I'm talking to, you are all super capable of having direct experiences of this thing called emptiness, a complete understanding of the nature of reality, complete capacity to dual control and tame your mind and the senses. You have the ability and you have the capacity. And you're not born as a lonely being, so a pleasure being who are in temporary bliss, right? We're talking about the form and formless realms here. So you're somewhere in between all these realms of existence and all these possible iterations of sentience, of beings. You, the precious few who are walked into this room, are not normal when you consider the preciousness of the idea that you can be freed from suffering in a real sense. You can achieve this thing called nirvana, which is a permanent cessation of all mental afflictions, meaning you can achieve a state of mind, if you do the work, to never again experience a single thing that would cause your mind a distaste, a dislike, a discomfort, an annoyance. No more angry bosses, no more feeling fat, no more hair falling off, no more smelly armpits. You know, it might be beautifully smelly armpits, I don't know. Okay? You get the point, right? Yeah, so he talks about this. And then a key thing here is, okay, you're talking about finding a teacher. You're like, I'm precious and ripe for connecting with these teachings and someone I'm connecting to give me insight into these realms. Then there's two things we need to talk about. How do you stop negative karma from occurring as things are? So future karma, future loading the projector with suffering, and this is taking refuge. And the second part is, how do you clean the bag of negativity? Because even if you, from this moment on, no longer collect negativity, in other words, the courses for a future enlightenment, you still have a bag of stuff you did out of ignorance that must ripen. And so two things he discusses here, and I want to go into some depth, but maybe I'll review it better next week. And one is, how do you take refuge so you're no longer planting karma with ignorance that produces suffering? And secondly, I'll cover, how do you then look back at the karmic pool of good and bad and ugly and medium that you've collected that is producing the current reality, and work on that. Because Tsongkhapa says in his text, on a daily basis, trust me, you have to go back and tinker with every single action of body, speech and mind you did in your past, and clean up any unexpected negative surprises that can get in the way of you and your teacher, you and the path, you and freedom. Yeah?
That's like millions of
Yeah,
How
but
long?
yeah, but even in the no good, that's millions of years of stuff. But look, there's this thing. I don't know what they call it, but it's like an umbrella concept.
Okay.
You could do if you master wisdom, that can smash eons of. I mean, it does, right? So that's the game. The game is how do you.
Like,
I'm searching for a metaphor that would. One thing you could do to completely shift and change everything. Yeah?
It's like to hit the foundation instead of like dismantling.
Yeah, so you've got all these structures you've mantled and you're trying to remove this one, that one, and that one. You're just like, done. Yeah? One action, seeing emptiness directly at the essence. So let's go through refuge, because this applies on what is refuge, and there's the relative refuge and the ultimate refuge, and why is refuge refuge? Refuge is basically, I'm afraid of something, and I believe something's going to fix it. I mean, that's basic refuge. I hate my boss. Lying to his face might make him go away quickly. Yeah, that's ignorant refuge. Yeah, my neighbor threw a stone at my wall. I'm going to the police. They can help me. Yeah. My sister looked at me funny at the table. Mom, she looked at me funny at the table. Yeah? Basic refuge. I mean, this is refuge. Don't forget, at the time of the Buddha, the king of the Shakyas, you said, right? His clan got obliterated at the time when he was alive. He was sitting in his house and people came to hold on to his robes from refuge and they were slaughtered. So, taking refuge in the Buddha does not mean that, because he couldn't help that guy. Okay? So we're going to talk about the essence of refuge and why it's actual refuge. We have all these nominal refuge. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how many times you go to the police to give you help for the problem. At the end of the day, if the house doesn't break down, you're dead. So it doesn't really help. Do you see what I mean? Everything here that's produced must end. Harsh reality. But without understanding that reality, how the hell are we going to fix it? So look at the reality for it is. We're going now to what can really help. Here is this sentient. I am a conscious being. What is it that can help? So what is it we're afraid of? Number one is that harsh reality. The harsh reality of your current life. Everything you're engaged with must end. No, but yes, I've got to get the job and I've got to pay the mortgage and it doesn't matter whether you really think you have to or you don't have to. At some point, you can't do it, or you won't be allowed to do it, or you're just sick of doing it. You get to, at some point, that thing, that engagement, looking after your hair, looking after your body, looking after your friendships, looking after your relationships, buying the new car, getting extra $2, having 2 weeks vacation rather than 1.5. At some point, that's the problem. That's the thing we're afraid of. We can't even look at it. Ultimately, it means you're dead. Ultimately, it means this body we're in stops. And those things we're afraid of. We don't like talking about them. We don't like looking at them. This is the thing. So what is it that's refuge that can help you remove that experience, that perception, if everything is a projection? This is where the teaching of wisdom is key. If everything is a projection, then all that I just talked about does not have to be that way. It's not that way from its own side. It was produced. And yes, nominally you can say things were produced, the seeds made trees, and the trees made tables, and the tables made chairs. Yeah. But ultimately, your experience, your engagement of that as a being, as a human being, as this kind of human being, your experience of that was also produced. And if you manipulate that, that's the thing that can change all things. I don't want to answer your question because I want to get through the 2 slides, yeah? And then if it's relevant at the end, I'll go. So, you are sitting in the nominal refuge. I'm going to go 10 minutes over, so I don't really apologize. I love talking about this. The Buddha jewel. So the 3 traditional refuges are Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel, right? I told you the Buddha didn't help anybody in that way, right? Save me from being dead. Can't help you. It's why not? It's your karma. It's your production. Like really is your responsibility, according to this view, right? So the Buddha jewel in scripture is recognized as the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. Yeah, and that means a mind that perceives itself as being able to experience all relative and ultimate things at once with bliss. So imagine your mind capable of knowing all things of all time, forcing itself to see itself that way. Yeah? So it refers here to the Dharmakaya, the experience you have at the point of seeing emptiness directly, where they say you met a Buddha directly, you met a being, an enlightened being directly, you experience the mind of a Buddha. Real refuge is at the moment, at the path of seeing, where you have a direct experience of seeing emptiness, you see the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, and that is refuge, because at that point you see that your mind can also be that. That your mind does not have to be the mind that you are currently experiencing. And at that point, after that point, you know that with certainty. Up to that point, you know that with doubt, or you learn that, or you try that, or you try and generate that. At that point, imagine having a certainty beyond a doubt that a Buddha is real, that a mind can perceive itself in its ultimate source. And that is true refuge, because you know from that moment that rather than think, you know that the suffering is fake. You know that the suffering is just an image projected on blackness. The Dharma jewel, so there's the symbolic Dharma, Buddha, right? Which is that's the symbolic Buddha jewel. Taking refuge to that is not going to do anything. But taking refuge to the thinking of that is going to generate something. The Dharma jewel should be some books in there, right? We think of Dharma as the books, right? But it's not. Dharma is the realizations and cessations. So the ahas you have along the path and the things that stop hurting you along the path. And you can have cessations divided into two sections, some before the moment of seeing emptiness directly. So you can have cessations that occur before the path of seeing, and cessations that come at the path of seeing and after the path of seeing, for those that want to get technical. One cessation that happens before the path of seeing, before you have a direct experience of emptiness, is at the end of the second path of preparation. You have such an intellectual understanding of this concept of emptiness and karma that it's no longer possible for you to perceive yourself as having any lower realm experiences. You understand so much how causality occurs with you as a human or a sentient that you've essentially removed your capacity to be born in a lower realm, if you will, because you understand that, and you've been doing the work with virtue and emptiness, karma and emptiness, ethical life and emptiness. Does that make sense? And at that point, your virtue is built up so much, you have a cessation of being born in anything other than human or below. Yeah? Then the cessations at the end, after the path of emptiness, or the direct perception of emptiness. Nirvana is a cessation of all mental afflictions. At the path of seeing emptiness directly, the path of seeing, you have how many cessations?
84,000.
At the point of seeing emptiness directly.
Oh, no.
So you're a schmuck, and then all of a sudden you've done all this virtue, and then you're beginning to see your world pop and change and become beautiful. And one day in meditation, actually before that day meditation, you have a direct perception of dependent origination. Then you sit down in your cushion, and you actually enter into this experience of all-encompassing, seeing emptiness directly. And at that point, you see the Dharmakaya, and you have two cessations, right? What's one? Doubt.
Doubt,
Thank
yeah.
you. Huh?
That's the one I was going to say.
That's the only one?
And mental afflictions.
Huh?
And your mental afflictions.
No, you still have mental affliction. There's that come. You can't see this. So you see a Buddha directly, so you see the Dharmapala, and then you can't see things again as coming from their own side.
Oh.
Yeah? You see them, but you don't believe them. Yeah? Okay, cool. So in essence, the Dharma jewel, the only thing you go to refuge is emptiness. The fact that things don't exist from their own side the way you perceive them to be. And then the Sangha jewel, the nominal Sangha jewel, are monks and nuns. They are there to represent beings who have had that experience. The real Sangha are the Aryas, the beings who have had a direct experience and can talk about that not intellectually but experientially. And why the hell, I mean, it's emptiness, emptiness, emptiness. Why the hell would emptiness save you from the thing we're afraid of, which is the turmoil of dying and the cycling of things finishing? Like, this world is dependently arising and therefore it must fall. Every tree must drop down. Every house you build will eventually be knocked over. Every time you've looked after your hair, it's just going to be more hair. It'll be different hair. It'll be no hair. You know. Every piece of clothing you've worn, if you don't die first, it's going to end. Every relationship, every flower, every cloud, everything that's caused must end. And we experience that as suffering, and that does not need to be that way if wisdom is true. So if emptiness is true, then the experience of suffering with those things is caused. Do you see what's happening? Do you see why emptiness is the key to freedom? It's real refuge. Now, it's actually a time bomb or a time fight. It's a fight against time. Because if you don't have a direct experience of this thing before you're dead, it's like a reset and you better start again. Unless you've planted enough virtuous karmas to hopefully enter into a three jewels, or whatever shape and color or religion or conceptualization you call it. You can be in the Christian path, you can be in the yogi path, you can be in the shamanic path, you can be in any path, and then you engage with this thing that pitches you into the understanding of emptiness. Yeah.
Or what about at the time of death?
Or at the time of death, it is also possible. Of course it's possible. It's possible any time. Yeah? What I was referring to before is that there are some practices that give the Western mind a relax around engaging this stuff now while you're active and young. And I mean, we were talking to this guy, actually we were listening to this guy for an hour. He's 57 or something, and he was almost completely deluded, or every now and then completely blissful. I wasn't quite sure, but most of the time, if I looked at him nominally, he was a 60-year-old person who had sort of lost grasp. And I know the older we get, the more hardened we get in our views. You have supple minds. You have minds now that you seem to have exercising some control over. And whatever stuff you put in is the stuff that's going to come out as your complete experience, is what these teachings say. Your experience of a Jesus or a Virgin Mary or of Buddha or a great spiritual friend or a lover or a teacher is really a mirror of the stuff you've been putting into your mind. It's nothing but that. And I think this is the Buddhist cloak over that idea. Yeah? You can get a Christian cloak over that idea, talk to the Christian mystics. You can get a yogi cloak over that idea. Truth is truth. This is the language we're using to communicate this truth, and so, it's a path tested and so on. So refuge is really understanding to the deeper sense emptiness, and you can get a whole bunch of intellectual understanding until you have that direct experience, and then nothing can tell you otherwise. Then you are free. You still got to do a bunch of work because you still got karmas coming, of all the stuff you planted before you had that direct perception, except that you know they're workable. Until that moment, we're not sure. We still think things exist out there, So then the next thing I want to talk about is you want to purify the old bag of stuff that you've been dragging around according to for eons. Yeah, for every time this mind had a body, you've collected karmas. Whether it's a human body, an animal body, whatever. If this consciousness is eternal, and you've been all sorts of beings, every imprint you've put in there is still there, if it hasn't already ripened. And a bunch is ripening right now. And even if you don't believe that, or you want to put that on the shelf, which we can say, okay, what have I done since I remember being aware? Between then and now, if every action has an equal and opposite reaction, every action of mind, every thought you've ever had, every intention, everything you've ever said to another, and every movement or action you've done is actually karma. It's actually the pulsation of your future projector. Then I can tell you for certain, for that hour that I was talking or listening to that guy on the bench, I planted so much crap coming my way. So much judgmental stuff that is bound to come back in. I mean, it's mine. It didn't hurt him. I didn't say anything, but I watched my mind. And so the key here is, as these negativities arise, you better, Tsongkhapa says, you better be purifying every single day. And make a habit of it, make a practice of it, and collect until you get so good at it that you have certainty about clearing up things that are dragging behind you in your consciousness, things that interrupt your meditation, things that erupt into your reality as hurtful bosses, angry partners, shitty real estate agents, so etc. So I'll go quick, sorry. The basis for this foundation force is the first ground, the thing you push yourself up. So once you've fallen, right, once you've hurt yourself, you've done a negative action, like I had some negative thoughts about that guy that just wanted to talk. So I had all these negative and positive experiences with him, right? I'm going to have the result of both. To clean the negative ones, I better think foundation force. Force myself up. There's 4 forces to clean all things. It's refuge and bodhicitta. I just covered refuge. So for him it means the guy is empty. There is nothing independent from my experience of this guy that makes him crazy or annoying or anything like that. He is empty of that experience I've just had. That experience I own. If I act towards him as if he's the creator of that, I'm just perpetuating more of that, and I don't want another guy like that in my future. Refuge. Bodhicitta is thinking, if I figure that out, I can free myself from ever having to experience the angry boss, the annoying friend, etc., and help others and him.
And that's where being skillful is important, because it's not like a free pass to let that just go on.
No, I still had to interrupt you and say, I have to go, I can't talk to you anymore. And what do you mean? Gay is weird. Okay. Well, it was longer than that. Destruction force. This means intelligent regret. So if you're a well-educated Buddhist or pathfinder, you realize that your actions at that moment must ripen at some future time. And if they were negative, you better burn them now. And if they were positive, you better fertilize them by giving them away. So intelligent regret is looking at that guy, imagining our mind going, oh, what an idiot, going, hold on, you can't think that, Hector. It came up. I better not engage with that as the way that I really think of him. Look for something different in him. Regret the idiot part. Go, okay, I can't do the refuge environment. Now, regret the idiot. Yeah, because if I continue that way of thinking, I'm creating more of him. Yeah? So the destruction force. Intelligent regret. Know that the moments I thought of him as idiot are going to come back to me as people thinking I'm an idiot big time, or me perceiving that people are thinking that. So stop it quickly. The next part is restraint, which is based on that one. I mean, just don't do it again. And this is really the essence, because you're not building more of that karma. Stop doing that thing that hurts. Who does it hurt?
You.
Me. Every action you do, every negativity you do towards another only ever hurts you. Except for the time delay, we can't tell that, so we think it's them. You want to punch back, I think it's hurting them. Me thinking you're an idiot to this guy is only ever going to generate that seed of idiotness in me, and at some future time I'm going to be talking to Rachel and she's going to look away and I'm like, she thinks I'm an idiot, and it had nothing to do with her. You see it? And it flowered. And then a verbal instruction through all the lamas of the lineage, it's not written here, but it's a tradition to share, teacher to student, is to say, wherever you promise yourself not to do that, Sam, don't think of the next guy that sits with you at the bench as an idiot. I'll never do that again. Don't add a lie to already a non-virtue by saying, so that's another negativity. You don't want to add that. So he says, our teachers have always said, give yourself a reasonable stretch goal, a time limit that pushes you a little bit. Don't say, I'll never think of him as an idiot for the next 50 seconds. I can do that, but maybe I won't be able to do it for 2 minutes. So for the next minute, listen to everything he says as a kindness. And then your mind engages a completely different thing. And then if I think of him as an idiot 2 minutes later, 3 minutes later, then I haven't broken my promise. You see, I haven't added a negativity to a negativity. So for some things, for some physical things, you can do lifetime promises. For other things, you can do weekly promises. Never do that again. Don't do that again for the rest of your life. Don't do that again for the next 2 weeks. Don't do that again for the next 2 hours. Yeah? For some mental things, before you finish thinking not to do that again, you've already done it. So you've got to be realistic with your own capacity. And this is where we're in that dilemma. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. You know what to do. You know, you're inside there somewhere. You know your life, but you've got to take charge of it to make it yours. Otherwise, you're just swimming in the pool and being dragged by the current. And that really is the thing that stops it from reoccurring. It's just don't do it anymore. Don't think of people as idiots. That will stop you perceiving yourself as an idiot. I mean, that's really it. And that's hard. It's really hard. And the last is the antidote force. And you know, it's some kind of make-up activity to do the opposite, like I explained in relation to that guy. Okay, think of all the kindnesses that are coming out of this guy's mouth. And then you engage, that's good. But the ultimate antidote is emptiness. Studying emptiness is perceived as the ultimate antidote. Why would that be the case?
Because it removes the ignorance that's causing me to have those
Excellent.
perceptions.
Because it smashes the ignorance at the foundation. And I think that's all I got for you. Woo, so late. Thank you for listening to all these words. Thank you for spending the time and giving me the opportunity to share. I didn't really give you an essence of how precious it is to find a being in your life that ignites you to freedom in a way that nothing else has or ever will on your planet. They are truly the door to every freedom you could ever have. They invite every other Buddha. Because of them, like that teacher in the 8th grade, you can see the entire world in a different way, and then pop more teachers and more teachers and more Buddhas and more Buddhas, thanks to only them, your heart teacher. You may have instruction people that teach you karma, teach you emptiness, teach you, but your heart teacher moves your heart towards those things, and in that sense they are the fusion that get you out of samsara. I'm not sorry for running late.
Thank you for teaching.
You're welcome.
Sashi.
Bukir Jushin Metotram Rira Linshin Yundegam Padi Sangha Shindu Mite Wadi Drokun Namda Shimla Juparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamninyatayam
Geva.
Digoku Sunam Yashe Soksoshin Nam Yashe Legend Way Nampa Kuni Jopar Shom. Just have a read of the English translation if you haven't done it before, but consider it that way. That's the result of studying hypnotism. Blessings. Please stay. Please use your body and your mind for freedom.